The Carpenter and the Cradle, a History Weaver Adventure, Book 1, by Connie Worden, read by the author. Chapter 35. Rex was shouting something and running full tilt back to the rest around the campfire. "The food pack's gone," they could hear him saying as he drew closer. "Gone?" Paul narrowed his eyes. "Like how? Like a bear or some other animal got at it?" "No," Rex spat out. "The knots were untied and the ropes lying on the ground, but the pack is gone. Whoever took it was definitely human." There was alarm in every set of eyes that exchanged looks at the news. They were a hungry group, but the far bigger issue seemed to them all at that moment that they might also be in danger. Had they been followed? Were they being watched? "Nothing we can do about it tonight," Paul decided. "It's getting too dark to go out looking for anything. If anyone leaves the campfire or the tents for any reason, make sure you take someone else with you, okay? It's going to be an uncomfortable night trying to sleep on an empty stomach and a long walk tomorrow on no food. But it could be worse. We'll survive. At least we have our canteens for water. That's the bigger need. Doing without food for one day never killed anyone." "I need to refill my water bottle," Coral said. "Anyone want to come with me?" "I do too," June offered, and July decided to keep them company. All three could feel their heart rates rise as they prepared to set off for the creek. "Better take a flashlight," Paul said, handing them one. "It's likely to be dark by the time you get back." No one spoke as they made their way to the creek. It seemed to Coral that they almost tiptoed. They were a far cry from the noisy, excited, typical teenagers they usually were when they got together. "Actually, I really need the little girl's room more than water," Coral confessed after they reached the brook. "I'm going for that stand of trees. You don't have to come with me all the way. Just stay within earshot, will you?" June and July nodded. It was just light enough for Coral to spot the heap lying on the ground under one of the trees. "Hey!" She broke the stillness to shout to her friends. "I think I found the food pack! Come here and check it out!" The heap was indeed the pack. There were a few food items missing, the girls discovered in a quick inventory, but any food was better than no food. "Quick, let's do what we came to do and get back and tell the others," July barked the order. Ko stooped by the brook and scooped water into his mouth with both hands. After he'd quenched his thirst, he took a moment to turn his face to the sun with his eyes closed and listen to the song the running water made, just enjoying the warmth after the cold night and the rain. He soaked in the peace and rest, knowing he'd need them for the challenges of the day. A grip on his shoulder startled him so badly he jerked forward and nearly landed in the creek. In an instant, he was disgusted with himself for being caught off guard. What kind of a warrior would he turn out to be if he couldn't keep an awareness of his surroundings at all times? How had someone managed to creep up without being heard? Maybe the sound of the brook masked the sound of someone walking. All these thoughts flashed through his mind in the space of time it took him to turn, expecting to see his father behind him. "You!" he spat out when he was instead face to face with his brother. "Yes, it's me," Hab said. He looked so calm it made Ko angrier. "What do you want? We're never supposed to see each other again." Ko glowered at him. "That's all nonsense, Ko. You don't have to abide by that." "It's not nonsense, and I don't want to see you. You betrayed me." "I've never betrayed you, Ko. You were betrayed all right, but it wasn't by who you think. Come with me. I have someone I want you to see." "Why should I come with you? Why should I trust you? Why should I believe you didn't betray me?" There was some deeply buried part of Ko that wanted to believe Hab's words. But if he did, if Hab spoke the truth, what would that mean for everything else about Ko's existence? He had the sensation of everything turning upside down, of tumbling head over feet, over and over. It was dizzying. And yet, no one, not even Limo, had been closer to Ko and meant more to him at one time than Hab. In spite of the years between them, they had been inseparable. Hab had been both his hero and his best playmate. The longing to believe Hab's words was a deep, deep pool in Ko's soul that he didn't dare look into in case temptation overwhelmed him, and he dived in head first. But although he couldn't possibly consider believing Hab and trusting him again, shouldn't he at least go with him and see what Hab wanted him to see? Co felt sure that his brother would not have what it took to harm him personally. And if it started to feel as though he were walking into a trap, he'd be on the alert and bolt. "I'll come," Co said shortly. Without a word, Hab turned and Co followed in his trail. Hab walked until he reached the far side of the sheltered valley between the two peaks and led Co into a stand of trees. Co's mind told him he shouldn't follow, that this could be the trap he was half expecting. But his instincts were dulled to all danger by the old habits of his brother's presence. Again, he'd been lulled into seeing his brother as his protector, not his enemy. He realized it, but followed anyway. The raven-haired man with the ponytail, no longer wearing his disguise of the clothing of the commoners, but dressed properly like Co and Hab, stepped out from behind one of the trees. "I knew it," Co turned on his brother. "I knew you were leading me into a trap." It was too late to run now. He'd fight them instead if they approached him, like a wildcat. He clenched his fists and planted his feet. "Wait, Co, I'm not your enemy. You've been lied to," Hab spoke desperately. "I'm not the one you can't trust, and neither is this man. If you'll think about it, you'll see that we're not the ones who've hurt you. We've only ever tried to protect and help you, but we're also trying to get you to see the truth. Here, this man can explain it to you better than I can." It was still dark when June woke, but shapes were beginning to be visible. She rolled over onto her back to ease the discomfort of the lump digging into one hip that she'd been sleeping on for hours. Beside her, Coral was burrowed into her sleeping bag with only the top of her head poking out. She must have been cold in the night, June thought. Very likely she wasn't sleeping soundly. "Hey, Coral, are you awake?" she whispered. Coral groaned lightly. "I am now," her muffled voice said from deep in the bundle. "Sorry if I woke you." "I wasn't really sleeping anyway." "Well, I was thinking, I know my dad brought some binoculars. I was wondering if we want to start watching the spot where you found the pack just as soon as it's light. Chances are whoever left the pack there will be back for it." That's a thought." Coral's face emerged from its cocoon. "Should we get up and throw on some clothes and find the binoculars? Seeing neither of us are sleeping anyway, it'll be light soon." "Yeah, why not?" Coral said resignedly. "Might as well be doing something useful." They dressed hurriedly, trying not to shake the tent and wake their tent mates. Then they crawled out into the chilly air. "How are we going to find the binoculars, though?" Coral asked. "Chances are good my dad isn't sleeping either. We'll have to ask him where they are. Maybe he'll join us on watch." With her toe, June poked the side of her parents' tent, where she knew her dad was sleeping. "Who's there?" he called gruffly but quietly. He sounded perfectly alert, like he hadn't been sleeping either. "It's June," she whispered at the tent. "Can you come out?" "Right away." Her dad joined them in a matter of seconds. He appeared to have slept fully clothed. June explained her plan and asked him if they could borrow the binoculars. He crawled back in the tent and returned in a few seconds, binoculars in hand. By this time, dim colors could be seen. Paul trained his binoculars in the direction of the alpine forest, where Coral had found the pack the night before. "Here you go, Coral," he said, handing her the binoculars. "You'll have a better idea than I do where you saw the pack." "I'm not sure. It's hard to tell what's what or where I was last night. At least, looking through here. And the trees all look alike. Oh, wait. There's a little sort of clearing or space in the trees. That might be where it was. Now, if I look on the ground below the trees. Okay, this is starting to look right. Look, June, right there. Can you see where I'm pointing?" June put her eyes to the instrument. "Yeah, I think I see the gap in the trees you were talking about. Okay, now I know where to watch. Do you want me to take the first shift?" "If you want, maybe I can go look for branches to burn, get a fire going." "Good idea. Not exactly tropical, is it?" Paul shivered. While June kept watch, Coral and Paul got the campfire blazing. "My turn?" Coral offered after a short time. The early gray light was now making way for full daylight. Coral watched intently while June took her turn, warming herself at the fire. Her shift hadn't lasted 5 minutes before she yelped, "Someone's there!" June and Paul rushed over to her. "What can you see?" they questioned her in unison. He's hunting around. I imagine he's looking for the pack. He's got black hair and a ponytail. I can just see him from the back." "That does sound like James McKay. That's got to be Georgie's stepfather," June almost shouted. Coral kept watching. "I'm not sure," she said, sounding a little puzzled. "I can see his face now. I don't exactly remember what James McKay looked like for sure, but I kind of think this guy looks different. June, come and look." June took the binoculars and fixed them on the spot where Coral had them trained. "He's leaving," she said, following the man through the binoculars. "Let's see where he goes." "But do you think he's the same one we saw in the pictures?" Coral demanded. "I haven't got a good look at his face. Oh, there. I couldn't be sure either. No, wait. I just saw him turn to the other side, and you know what? It's not James McKay, I'm sure of it. Remember? He had that neck tattoo. I got a good look at both sides of his neck, and there's no tattoo. It can't be him. He's off into the trees now. He went back deeper into the woods. I can't see him anymore. But who could he possibly be if he's not Georgie's stepfather?" June took the binoculars down, and the girls faced each other, mirroring the question in both their expressions. Ko stood uncertainly, keeping the same stance. He didn't answer his brother. He'd hear what he had to say, but he wasn't about to commit himself. "Has it never occurred to you that maybe our side isn't the good guys? Haven't you ever wondered if maybe we're the bad guys?" Hab continued. Ko glowered. He certainly wasn't going to admit that such traitorous thoughts had ever entered his head, even if they had. What was the rivalry between the two warring groups, both claiming rightful ownership of the sacred cradle and the other sacred pieces? How had it started, and why did it continue? The constant warfare had been such a part of Ko's life and earliest memories that it was only recently that questions had surfaced in his mind. But of course the Order of the Guardians were the rightful keepers of the sacred pieces. They had to be. The evil of the others made them unfit as its guardians. Hab abruptly broke into Ko's unwilling reverie. "Ko, there's something I have to tell you. You won't want to hear it." Ko said nothing. He would listen, but he was determined to give his brother no assistance at all. His heart beat faster in spite of himself. "Lamo is not your father, and I'm not your brother," Hab stated baldly. Ko maintained his stone-cold expression. "Ko, I'm your brother," the stranger said.